I want to tell you about a patient of mine. His name is Vincent. Vincent is 76 years old, retired civil engineer. The kind of man who spent his career calculating tolerances, testing materials under pressure, making sure things held up over time. And he brought that same methodical thinking to his own health. When Vincent walked into my office for his annual review last year, I did what I always do. I pulled up his blood markers before he sat down. And I found myself looking at the numbers twice, not because something was wrong, because something was unusually right. His flow-mediated dilation measurement, a direct assessment of how well his blood vessel walls expand and contract, was in the range you expect to see in a healthy man in his mid-50s, not his mid-70s. His resting blood pressure was 119/71, without any blood pressure medication. His homocysteine, a marker of vascular inflammation, was 7.2 micromoles per liter, well within the protective range. And his arterial stiffness measurement, his pulse wave velocity, was 7.1 meters per second, a number more consistent with someone 15 to 20 years younger. I looked at Vincent and I said, "Tell me about your mornings." And he told me. 2 years ago, he had read something about nitric oxide and arterial health, and he had quietly, without telling anyone, made one change to his morning routine. A change that takes about 3 minutes, costs less than $2 a day, and that he has done every single morning since, without missing a day. My name is Dr. Daniel Chen, and today I want to walk you through what Vincent told me, what nitric oxide actually is, why it matters so much for circulation after 65, what the clinical research says about dietary nitrates, and what Vincent changed about his morning drink that his cardiologist and I both believe is contributing to those remarkable numbers. Let us begin. Now, before I tell you what Vincent changed, I want to explain something that most people over 65 have never heard about, but that every cardiologist understands very well. It is called nitric oxide, and it is one of the most important molecules in your cardiovascular system. Nitric oxide is a gas, a signaling molecule, produced by the cells that line the inside of your blood vessels. Those cells are called endothelial cells, and the layer they form, the inner lining of every artery and vein in your body, is called the endothelium. Now, when your endothelium produces nitric oxide, that gas signals the smooth muscle in the vessel wall to relax. And when the muscle relaxes, the vessel dilates. It opens up. Blood flows more freely with less resistance, and blood pressure drops. Nitric oxide does more than just dilate vessels. It also inhibits the aggregation of platelets, making blood less likely to clot inappropriately. It reduces inflammation in the vessel wall. It prevents white blood cells from sticking to the vessel lining, and it slows the accumulation of plaques inside arteries. In short, nitric oxide is one of the primary ways your body protects its own blood vessels from the inside every day. Now, here's what changes after 65, and this is the part most people never hear. Aging causes numerous changes to the cardiovascular system, including increased total peripheral resistance and vascular endothelial dysfunction, which has been associated with the reduced bioavailability of nitric oxide. In plain terms, as we age, our endothelial cells produce less nitric oxide. The signal gets weaker. The vessels become less responsive, less able to dilate freely, less able to regulate blood flow efficiently. This reduced nitric oxide availability is one of the primary drivers of the blood pressure increases, the arterial stiffening, and the reduced circulation that many adults experience after 65. It is not just aging in general. It is specifically this mechanism. That endothelial nitric oxide production declines, and that the vessels lose some of their ability to self-regulate. Now, this is where dietary nitrates become relevant. and where Vincent's story gets interesting. Your body has a pathway called the nitrate, nitrite, nitric oxide pathway. It works like this. When you consume foods that are rich in inorganic nitrates, such as beetroot, spinach, rocket, kale, or other leafy greens, those nitrates are absorbed into your bloodstream and taken up by the salivary glands. Within the oral cavity, nitrate becomes 10 to 20-fold more concentrated in the saliva. Further salivary nitrate is reduced to nitrite by commensal facultative anaerobic bacteria located on the posterior region of the tongue. After swallowing, most of the salivary nitrite is converted to nitric oxide in the acidic conditions of the stomach. However, a small percentage is transported into the circulation. In plain terms, the bacteria in your mouth naturally, without any supplements, without any drugs, convert dietary nitrates into nitrite. And your body then converts that nitrite into nitric oxide, the very molecule your aging endothelium is producing less of. You are essentially supplementing your body's nitric oxide production through what you eat and drink every single morning. Now, what does the research actually show about this pathway and its effect on circulation in older adults? I want to be specific here because the evidence is strong in some areas and more mixed in others, and you deserve the honest picture. A randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial randomly assigned 68 patients with hypertension to receive daily dietary supplementation for 4 weeks with either dietary nitrate as 250 milliliters of beetroot juice per day or a placebo of nitrate-free beetroot juice. Single-dose administration of dietary inorganic nitrate acutely reduces blood pressure via bioconversion to the vasodilator nitric oxide. The results of that trial, published in the journal Hypertension, showed meaningful and sustained blood pressure reductions over 4 weeks in both medicated and unmedicated hypertensive patients. A 2024 randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind crossover clinical trial published in Frontiers in Nutrition found that 7 days of dietary nitrate supplementation in the form of beetroot juice clinically significantly improved basal macrovascular function in postmenopausal women. Dietary intake of beetroot juice and other plant-based nitrate-rich foods is a promising non-pharmacological strategy for increasing systemic nitric oxide and improving endothelial function in elderly populations. A 2025 systematic review and dose-response meta-analysis published in Nutrition Journal analyzed the full body of randomized controlled trial evidence on dietary nitrate and vascular health and found consistent associations between dietary nitrate supplementation and improvements in plasma nitrate levels, blood pressure, and vascular health biomarkers. Now, I want to be honest about something because I think it is important. Not all studies have found the same effect. One pilot study comparing younger and older participants found no effect of nitrate-rich beetroot juice on microvascular function and blood pressure in either age group. Research in nutrition is rarely unanimous, and the response to dietary nitrates appears to vary based on individual factors. Baseline blood pressure, the health of the oral microbiome, which is needed to convert nitrate to nitrite, and baseline nitric oxide production. This is why I am not telling you that beetroot juice cures anything. What I am telling you is that the mechanism is real. The pathway is well established, and the evidence across multiple clinical trials. In older adults with hypertension and endothelial dysfunction, shows consistent and meaningful benefits. For many people, particularly those with elevated blood pressure or early signs of vascular aging. Now, let me tell you what Vincent does every single morning and why each element of it makes biological sense. Vincent wakes up, and before he eats anything, before coffee, before medication, he prepares what he calls his morning circulation drink. It is not a supplement. It is not a pill. It is three things combined in a glass. The first ingredient is 150 milliliters of pure beetroot juice, cold pressed, not from concentrate, not with added sugar, just beetroot. Beetroot is one of the richest dietary sources of inorganic nitrate that exist. A 70 milliliter serving of beetroot juice, the standard research dose, contains approximately 400 milligrams of nitrate. A 2024 clinical trial used nitrate-rich beetroot juice containing 400 milligrams of nitrate per 70 milliliter serving. Vincent uses approximately double that, 150 milliliters. Not because more is always better, but because he found that amount tolerable and consistent with the doses used in the trials showing the strongest effects. Now, here's something critical that most people who drink beetroot juice do not know, and that almost certainly contributes to whether it works or not. Do not use antibacterial mouthwash before drinking it or after. The conversion of nitrate to nitrite happens in your mouth through the bacteria living on your tongue. If you kill those bacteria with an antibacterial mouthwash, the conversion cannot happen. The nitrate passes through without being converted and reaches your stomach as nitrate rather than nitrite, with significantly less nitric oxide production as a result. Several studies have specifically shown that the blood pressure lowering effect of beetroot juice is abolished when participants use antibacterial mouthwash. This is not a minor detail. It is the mechanism. If you use antibacterial mouthwash daily and you are wondering why dietary nitrates do not seem to be working for you, that may be why. Vincent does not use antibacterial mouthwash. He uses a simple non-antibacterial fluoride toothpaste, and he specifically avoids mouthwash for exactly this reason. The second ingredient in Vincent's morning drink is a squeeze of fresh lemon juice, about half a lemon. Now, why lemon juice? This is where Vincent's engineering mind comes through. He read that vitamin C found abundantly in fresh lemon juice has been shown in research to improve nitric oxide bioavailability by protecting nitric oxide from oxidative degradation. Nitric oxide is unstable. It can be broken down by reactive oxygen species, free radicals, before it has a chance to act on the vessel wall. Vitamin C is a powerful antioxidant, and it appears to stabilize nitric oxide, allowing it to reach and act on the smooth muscle cells more effectively. Several studies have found that combining dietary nitrates with vitamin C produces greater endothelial function improvements than either alone. Half a fresh lemon squeezed into the drink is a simple and inexpensive way to support this mechanism. The third ingredient is plain water, about 200 milliliters, to dilute the beetroot juice, make it more palatable, and support hydration, which, as I have discussed in other videos, itself supports optimal blood viscosity and circulation. Now, Vincent drinks this first thing in the morning, before food, before coffee, before anything else. The reason for this timing is that the conversion of nitrate to nitrite and then to nitric oxide happens most efficiently in the fasting state, when stomach acid is higher, and when nothing else is competing for absorption. The nitric oxide peak typically occurs within 30 to 90 minutes after consumption, and that is precisely the period when Vincent does his morning walk, which typically lasts 30 minutes. He exercises during the window of highest nitric oxide availability, when his vessels are most dilated, when blood flow is most efficient, and when the cardiovascular benefit of the exercise is working alongside rather than independent of the dietary nitrate effect. This is not coincidence. Vincent planned it this way because he read the research and because he understood the timing. Now, I want to explain something about what nitric oxide does during exercise specifically that makes this timing meaningful. A single dose of a beetroot-based gel speeds up muscle oxygen resaturation, increases blood volume, and improves recovery of hand grip strength after exercise in older adults. In plain terms, when you exercise, your muscles need more oxygen, and oxygen is delivered by blood. Better circulation means more oxygen to the muscles, means better endurance, faster recovery, less fatigue. For older adults whose circulation is already somewhat less efficient due to the reduced nitric oxide production I described, timing the dietary nitrate consumption before exercise amplifies the cardiovascular benefit of the exercise itself. Vincent walks further and with less fatigue than he would without the morning drink. His cardiologist noted this when Vincent described it and said it was entirely consistent with the mechanism. Now, Vincent also eats specific foods throughout the day that support the same pathway through a different mechanism. And I'm going to tell you about these because the morning drink is the foundation, but the full effect comes from the complete dietary pattern. The first is dark leafy greens, at least one large serving per day. Rocket, spinach, kale, watercress. These are among the richest dietary sources of nitrate available. And they also contain folate, which directly supports endothelial function, to its role in recycling a molecule called BH4, which is essential for nitric oxide synthase, the enzyme that makes nitric oxide in the endothelium. The second is garlic. Vincent eats 1 to 2 cloves of fresh, crushed garlic every day, allowed to rest for 10 minutes after crushing, before being added to food. Garlic contains a compound called allicin, which has been shown in research to increase nitric oxide synthase activity, directly stimulating the endothelium's own production of nitric oxide. The rest period after crushing is important. It allows the enzymatic conversion that produces allicin to complete. Before cooking, inactivates the enzyme. The third is dark chocolate. A small square, 20 to 30 grams of 85% cocoa dark chocolate every day. The flavonols in dark chocolate have been shown in multiple trials to improve endothelial function by increasing nitric oxide synthase activity and reducing the oxidative degradation of nitric oxide. The Cosmos Cocoa Trial, a large clinical trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, found that cocoa flavanol supplementation significantly reduced cardiovascular mortality in older adults over 2 years compared to placebo. Now, I also want to tell you what Vincent avoids, because as with Margaret's story, the avoidances are as important as the inclusions. Vincent does not use antibacterial mouthwash, as I mentioned, but he also specifically avoids antacid medications taken regularly because antacids reduce stomach acid, and stomach acid is needed to convert nitrite to nitric oxide. In the acidic environment of the stomach, regular antacid use, long-term proton pump inhibitor therapy can reduce the efficiency of the nitrate to nitric oxide pathway. This is something many seniors are on. For acid reflux, and if you are on a proton pump inhibitor long-term, it is worth discussing with your doctor whether it is still necessary, because the effects extend beyond digestive comfort. Vincent also specifically avoids high-dose statin use. Not because statins are wrong for everyone, his cholesterol does not require them. but because emerging research suggests that very high doses of statins may paradoxically reduce endothelial nitric oxide production. In some individuals, this is a nuanced and still developing area of research. And I mention it only to note that the picture around medications and nitric oxide is more complex than most patients ever hear. Now, I want to talk about one thing that I think is the most practical takeaway from Vincent's story and from the research behind it. Many people, when they hear about nitric oxide in circulation, think about expensive supplements, L-arginine powders, nitric oxide boosters that fill the shelves of health food stores. And I want to be direct about those. The evidence for oral L-arginine supplementation for improving circulation in older adults is significantly weaker than the evidence for dietary nitrates from whole foods. This is because L-arginine, the amino acid the body uses to make nitric oxide via the endothelial pathway, is subject to what researchers call the arginine paradox. The endothelium already has more than enough arginine to make nitric oxide. The limiting factor is not arginine availability, it is endothelial dysfunction itself, oxidative stress, inflammation, age-related changes to nitric oxide synthase. Adding more arginine does not fix those things. Dietary nitrates work through a completely different pathway, a backup pathway that bypasses the dysfunctional endothelium and delivers nitric oxide directly without depending on the endothelium to make it. This is why the research on dietary nitrates from beetroot and leafy greens is more consistently positive than the research on L-arginine supplements. And it is why I recommend food, not supplements, as the foundation of this approach. Now, let me bring everything together for you in the way I would explain it to a patient sitting in my office. Your endothelium, the inner lining of your blood vessels, produces less nitric oxide as you age. This is one of the primary drivers of reduced circulation, arterial stiffening, and blood pressure increases after 65. Dietary nitrates from beetroot, spinach, rocket, kale, and other leafy greens provide a backup pathway for nitric oxide production that does not depend on your endothelium working perfectly. The bacteria in your mouth convert dietary nitrate to nitrite. Your stomach converts nitrite to nitric oxide.
And that nitric oxide signals your vessels to dilate,
improve blood flow, and reduce pressure. The evidence from multiple randomized controlled trials, including trials specifically in older adults with hypertension, shows consistent and meaningful blood pressure reductions and improvements in endothelial function from regular dietary nitrate consumption. The effect is real, the mechanism is well established, and it can be supported with a simple morning drink that takes 3 minutes to prepare and costs less than $2 a day. Vincent's morning drink is beetroot juice, 150 milliliters, with fresh lemon juice for vitamin C, and 200 milliliters of water, drunk on an empty stomach 30 to 60 minutes before his morning walk, without antibacterial mouthwash, which would block the conversion, supported throughout the day by dark leafy greens, daily garlic, and a small piece of dark chocolate. That is the complete picture. That is what his cardiologist looked at and said, "Vincent, your circulation markers look 20 years younger than your age. Keep doing exactly what you are doing." Now, I want to close with something important. Dietary nitrates are not a replacement for blood pressure medication. If you are on medication, continue taking it. And talk to your doctor before making significant dietary changes, particularly if you are on any medications that affect blood pressure, because the combined effect of medication and dietary nitrates could lower blood pressure more than intended and require a medication review. Also, if you have kidney disease, talk to your doctor before significantly increasing nitrate-rich vegetables, because dietary oxalates in some of these foods may need to be managed carefully. For most healthy seniors without these specific conditions, adding a daily beetroot juice and increasing leafy green consumption is safe, evidence-supported,
and potentially one of the most accessible things you can do for your long-term vascular health.
I am Dr. Daniel Chen. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If Vincent's story made you think differently about what you drink in the morning, I hope it was useful. Please share this video with someone you care about, whose circulation could use support, and whose morning routine might benefit from one small change. Leave your questions in the comments. I read every single one, and I will see you in the next video. Take care of your blood vessels every single morning, because every morning is a chance to feed them better than you did yesterday.